Hi everybody, my name is Latired. I am a Star Citizen content creator over on Twitch, and I stream Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Tuesdays. You can find me over on Twitch, link below. And yeah, welcome in. Today we're going to be doing another ISC React, except today is about server meshing. Today's ISC is Dev Diary server meshing. So really excited actually and curious to see what they have to say about this, because we all know why server meshing is so important. It's what's holding us back from 4.0. It's from holding us back from, having over 1,000 players in the same session, shard, verse, whatever you want to call it, PU. We all know why server meshing is so important is because, well, we need that in order to progress and truly develop the game that we're all hoping for, that we've all been waiting for, that some of you have backed for 12 years. So with that said, let's go ahead and start watching. Actually, let's do a quick recap on why server meshing, or what it is essentially. So for those of you that don't know, so server meshing is essentially the connecting of two different servers to act as one, where you can transition from one to the other seamlessly without needing a load screen or having some sort of buffer time or anything like that. An instant crossing over into another server, which would allow the game to then have multiple servers for the same verse, same star systems or whatever, and which would allow us to play with potentially thousands of people. So that server meshing is a part of a bigger picture, and we've had multiple steps in order to get here, which was PES, persistent entity streaming, and then the replication layer, crash recovery was also a part of that. And now we are getting into server meshing. We did a server meshing test recently. What is it, 2-3 weeks ago now? Evo has been testing it out as well. And yeah, so there is a lot going on here. Let's jump right into it. Yeah, all right, let's go. What's up? Let's keep it on. Et t'inquiète très.
Yeah, that was a nerve-wracking one for us because it was the first time, going out public with such a big fundamental change for how we run the game.
Replication layer network code split out from the dedicated game server, running in its own service we call the hybrid service.
So these tests are not just for us in Cortec. These are also for the game side as well, so they can actually see their systems functioning along with server meshing. It's kind of one cohesive whole.
So that was the first time trying to deploy that kind of environment, which is radically different from what we've had to do before. One of the major purposes of Tech Preview is to expose the game to a much wider audience so that the rest of the development team can see more of their work exposed. Really.
Okay, let's translate that real quick because that's kind of interesting. He's basically saying the tech preview was important because you guys got to test this for us. So thank you is what he should have said. And then getting to see the work the devs do, that means getting to try out and fix the stuff that they've been trying to get us for years now, which I'm very happy with. That's not a criticism. I would have phrased that differently. But all right, let's see what else I have to say.
Help us pick up on all the little corner and edge cases that we don't necessarily spot if we only have a handful of people testing.
So it's really good to, have other development teams look at the tech from, a development perspective and on a live environment as well.
In Alpha 3.18, we introduced the replication layer, our first major milestone towards server meshing. It offloaded.
Wait, I thought in 3.18 we got the persistent entity streaming layer, or whatever you want to call that, PES. I thought that was the main thing that we got in 3.18. I guess maybe they're counting that as technically a part of the replication layer.
The entire state of the universe, things like characters, ships, weapons, and more, away from the game server, which we call the DGS. It wasn't the smoothest process, but the work of splitting the replication layer to be shared between the client and EGS into a new hybrid service still needed to be done, as was testing of a brand new server crash recovery system that was long overdue. These would be the focus of our first 2 tech preview tests, and everyone was excited to learn everything we could with help from the community.
Basically, we learned that it worked.
Went surprisingly well for us.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah, good job.
I'm trying to deploy that kind of environment, which is radically different from what we've had to do before. One of the major purposes of Tech Preview is to expose the game to a much wider audience so that the rest of the development team can see more of their work exposed, really help us pick up on all the
server, which we call the DGS.
All right, sorry, I fucked
It
that one up.
wasn't the smoothest process, but the work of splitting the replication layer to be shared between the client and EGS into a new hybrid service still needed to be done, as was testing of a brand new server crash recovery system that was long overdue.
Yeah.
These would
when server crash started to work very slowly, which by the way, that was not in 3.18. But when crash recovery really started to work, I'd say what? Maybe end of 3.21, 3.22. It was really nice to know that you could crash and then come back right in the exact spot that you had crashed in. And that was such a sigh of relief. Now, it seems to have stopped working, or maybe they removed it, or it's not working as well as it used to. But when it still does work, that immediate sigh of relief that you get to breathe when you load right back to where you were with your gear in your ship, wherever it was you were, is seriously was so needed.
the focus of our first 2 tech preview tests, and everyone was excited to learn everything we could with help from the community.
Basically, we learned that it worked.
went surprisingly well for us.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah, good job. It works.
I'm not laughing. I don't think any of us who played through it are laughing. That was not fun. I kind of find it hilarious how they built an entire system around a situation that shouldn't happen. Well, the fact that it works though is nice. But yeah, I have to agree with you. Theoretically, you would want that to never happen ever. But unfortunately, we know that servers crash. Sometimes through no fault of the game developers, sometimes the servers themselves die, or the place that houses the servers loses power, let's say. It's nice to find things that fall through the cracks. Yeah, it's nice that they're at least picking up some of those pieces.
We learned that, the technology was working kind of as we expected. It was like surprising how well it actually worked.
For the backers, the major change that they would have observed through these tests was the improvement for server crash recovery. So the first outing,
Like I said, improvement, yes, but when it works.
with server crash recovery, we were talking 25, 30-minute recovery times, frequent crashes all over the place.
It's almost like we're pulling the tablecloth out from underneath everybody at once. So it requires people to make some interesting considerations and kind of shimmy that tablecloth back underneath with the new server.
So if the server crashes, the game state still survives. We can spin up another server, and when it connects again, the new server connects again. It can get all the game state back, and clients can continue on their merry way.
It's basically server meshing for game code all at once in like one big giant transition.
But I think by the time we were getting to this, second and third tests, we're starting to see things dramatically quicker and dramatically more reliable.
Yeah, I think I was probably expecting it to explode. Yeah, pretty hard. But we were surprised that the game code worked.
It did explode, though. 3.18, 3.19 were tough. Like, it created all these connectivity issues for people in 3.19 who, by the way, I don't know if all of you are aware of this, but when it hit, 3.18 and 3.19 were not stable. 3.19 was better than 3.18, but they were not stable at all. They constantly crashed. And the greatest thing about 3.19, I say greatest, but I'm being sarcastic, is people who just hit concierge couldn't sign in for 3 weeks. Donc désolé là pour les Français. Pour vous donner rapidement un petit résumé de ce qui a été dit, il parle de la création des chaînes de Tech Preview, je sais pas comment vous l'appelez en français. Il parle de tout le travail qui a été fait pour rajouter les crash recovery, donc quand le jeu crash, que ça vous remette là où vous étiez et pas de nouveau à la station où vous êtes obligé de recommencer du début. Mais comme on le sait tous, ça ne marche pas forcément tout le temps. Donc voilà, donc il se donnait il se tapait dans le dos là, il se félicite pour un travail bien fait, mais on est tous au courant que c'est pas forcément ça. Donc ok, donc ouais, désolé les Français, n'hésitez pas à me le rappeler, que je vous traduise des trucs et tout, il y a pas de problème.
Worked as well as it did without needing changes.
Backers have a way of finding and breaking things. So yeah, having a good few hours testing in Bacchus hands in a more or less real-world environment was incredibly valuable.
Of course, this is still game development. And these were tests, not just for the core technology group, but for every other dev team to see just how much work they still had ahead of them. Work that continues to be the focus of our first 2 tech preview tests.
Went surprisingly well for us.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Surprising
okay,
how
again,
well it
again, no, it did not. I'm glad for you on your end you think it went well. If it went that well, then I would think we would have seen some of this stuff earlier. And also, I just want to point this out. The fact that they're talking about how well it went, I don't want to hear in a week or two, oh yeah, so it doesn't work. We're going to have to push it back. No, that's not going to fly. You just said it worked great. When us who played 318 know it did not work so great. Reality distortion field. Well, no, here's also another thing, right? When we're talking about developing any project, looking at it from the outside and being in it is always a very different thing, right? So for them, in terms of their goals and what they're trying to achieve, this might be going very well, because let's also remember, a game in development, their main focus is very rarely, if never, on developing a stable version of what you're playing right now. Growing pains like 13 with a graph database integration. Welcome to the club realist. I mean, who isn't at this? Is you from entering battle royales? You cheating won't stand. Can you even do that? That would be hilarious. Ban the streamer. Because we are citizens. We are familiar with hiccups. We are inherently patient, which is something that I am incredibly respectful of with the Star Citizen community. The amount of patience, the amount of sheer desire to find ways to still play. So I've never seen a community come up with so many workarounds to things. Like even me, and I catch myself doing it. I was playing with someone who hadn't played in a little while, Tula. Tula came into the game. I hadn't played in a while, and one of the first things I tell him is, "Oh yeah, if you can't drag the drink into your hand, just put it on the floor, then pick it up. It'll work." And he's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, that's the workaround." And it's like just things like that. I mean, and we are patient. I don't know if I would say ever too patient. I don't know. I mean, sometimes, yeah, maybe. Or maybe sometimes we should ask for, and I think we have, or I think the Star Citizen community has in the past kind of asked for things to change, and things have changed a little bit. Maybe not exactly the way we thought or wanted, but it did.
For the backers, the major change that they would have observed through these tests was the improvement for server crash recovery. So the first outing with server crash recovery, we were talking 25, 30-minute recovery times, frequent crashes all over the place.
It's almost like we're pulling the tablecloth out from underneath everybody at once.
Okay, let's watch more.
State still survives. We can spin up another server, and when it connects again, the new server connects again, it can get all the game state back, and clients can continue on their merry way.
It's basically server meshing for game code all at once in like one big giant transition.
But I think by the time we were getting to this, second and third tests, we're starting to see things dramatically quicker and dramatically more reliable.
Yeah, I think I was probably expecting it to explode. Yeah, pretty hard. But we were surprised that the game code worked as well as it did without needing changes.
Backers have a way of finding and breaking things, so yeah.
Yeah, we're great at it. And I'm looking at you, everyone who decides to drop their gown and leave it in the frickin' med bays or in the damn hallways or in front of an elevator. Stop it. Just stop it.
Having a good few hours testing in Bacchus hands in a more or less real-world environment was incredibly valuable.
Of course, this is still game development. And these were tests, not just for the core technology group, but for every other dev team to see just how much work they still had ahead of them. Work that continues today, adapting all of Star Citizen's various game systems to the realities of server meshing.
We found that there were some gameplay systems that weren't quite ready for server crash recovery, that could cause some issues when a server crashes and one takes its place. So that kind of allowed us to kind of create a bunch of bugs and send them out to various gameplay teams.
What's cyclical crashing?
Basically, when the server then tries to recover, start back up, it would then deserialize the state that we had stored previously, and the state itself was corrupt, so it would just crash, and it would just keep trying. Pretty annoying. A lot of people were like, this, let's turn off server crash recovery, that's the problem, when actually, no, it wasn't the problem. It was just the state it was in.
You know what? I just want to say real quick, first of all, this is actually really interesting to see them talk about the crash recovery issues they had, because it was like 10 to 20 minutes the first time. And then recently I had one where it actually took like 3 minutes, 4 minutes for us to move over. But there's been times where it's like 30 seconds and you're in a new server. That's really nice. Okay, but to go back to what Arcane just said, I think if you litter, right? Maybe we don't get a crime stat. You have to spend the day working in a raptor. Yeah. I think that should be the raptor game loop. Is if you're caught littering, profusely throughout the verse, you're gonna be restricted to using a raptor and wherever you littered the most. Exactly, and I would too. I would totally litter just to get in the raptor. Like, really? I can spend the day in this? Sweet. Here's all my stuff on the ground. Jump. But all right, let's keep going.
When it is working, it works very well.
Star Citizen is a large, complex game. Every little bit of it across Cortec and the actual game system has to function perfectly for server meshing to work. The test allowed us to point to parts of the code where things didn't function, so we could go back to the game teams and say, you need to go back and you need to rework this particular system.
Being able to allow the replication layer to kind of soak is kind of how we were able to get it from basically having things work for the first time to a production-ready product.
Making sure that we were in a good state so that we could progress with the next set of tech preview tests.
It had worked twice now?
Yes, yeah, the overconfidence was starting to grow, yes.
Again, define worked. Yeah, I mean, for those that are having items dropped on, in front of them, if you're doing that in your personal hangar, who cares? That's instance. That's away from the server, right? 1.9 for it, ship it, slap a label on it, sell it. The game, by the way, now costs $120 for an Aurora. No, that would be horrible. But by the way, that is actually probably something that I'm going to bring up in a podcast soon is, are they going to truly remove ship sales with a 1.0? Because I think that's the biggest question on everybody's mind. I mean, yes, a lot of us are very curious to see what a 1.0 would actually look like, but you had said you'd stop selling ships when 1.0. So are you gonna double, triple the base game price? Or is it gonna be a subscription like World of Warcraft? This might be the only game I think that could get away with that. But then you can't sell ships. Paint sales, cosmetics, I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's fine. I'm okay with that to stay in. I think we're going to also, some people are going to be upset with the fact that now all these games are buyable, or all these ships are buyable in game. It's going to be, for me, I think, good, very good for the verse, very healthy for the community to now be working more in game to get those big things. And the reason why I bring this up is because I'm thinking mainly of the Javelin, the Idris, the Polaris, all these big ass ships, big heavy hitters that are going to have to be available with purchase in game. Even though I know they've said a limited amount and all that stuff, I think that also is because they know they're going to have to be selling some in game. Now, will they probably cost 200 million AUEC? Yeah. And I think that would be fair for something like an Idris in game or something like a Bengal. Well, no, we know you won't be able to buy the Bengal. But that's the general idea. I do know that I would love a Retribution, if I could have that.
With 2 successful trials in the can, the team broke for the holidays, returning in January with more tests, more fixes, more bugs to discover, and even improvements to the very manner in which we collected and analyzed data itself.
At this point now, it's not only about just getting server crash recovery working, but we're really starting to see changes come in from the game teams for the various systems that interact with it. So from those early tests, people would have seen, you know, a loss of state for certain systems or things that just didn't recover well. If you ended up in, you know, a weird condition where, let's just say you were in the middle of respawning during a server crash.
But this is when we were noticing, you know, a lot of, you know, major spikes, and, you know, a player tries to interact with a door or a ship or tries to pick up something, and, you know, they could be waiting several minutes for something to actually happen. But then it was also other game code as well. Other teams, you know, send in sort of like serialized variables and messages across the network. Some of them were like being sent twice, which obviously is not ideal, because if we're sending messages twice, we only need to send it once. Then we've got 2 messages being sent, which is, you know, the backlog or the queue is just going to get busier a lot quicker. So between now and then, you know, data, analytics, metrics, making sure that the development team have the information that they need when they request it as well, and having our back-end dashboard set up so information is correct and not incorrect, because we don't want to provide incorrect results.
We're starting to see
Sorry, that was super interesting to hear. I really do hope that's the way things are being implemented now. Hey, Camelia's fantastic. Good night. Have fun. Merci. Thank you so much. Have a good night. What they mean, but exploration gaming, more bugs to discover. Well, we're always going to be discovering bugs, right? As different loads happen, as weird situations, like he called it. I can only imagine how frustrating it would have been to respawn, being in the middle of respawning while a server crashes, and then having the bug where when it recovers, it crashes again a minute later, and just constantly being respawned. That would be absolutely horrible. I don't want that. No, thank you. We're going to be discovering a lot of these things. That's normal because we are the testers. They don't hire testers to do this stuff for them. They figure it out on the fly with us, which is okay because this is what we signed up for every time we click the game. This is an alpha. It's a game in development, all that good stuff, right? I hope, based off what he said, that means that all this work that they've clearly been doing to redesign systems to make sure everything's flowing with the replication layer, with the PES, with the server meshing tests, that they're not overloading their servers and the amount of information and data flowing through. I really do hope that happens quicker or sooner than later. It appears that that's the path they're on, at least with how optimistic they are here. Again, you know, forget who mentioned they live in their own little reality. That may be a little true, or they may not play their game on the live as much as we think.
For those kind of strange cases start to come in. So the overall experience at this point now would have been much more solid.
At this point, after a series of necessary wins and a reconfiguration of our analytics dashboard, with clients and servers now both connecting to the hybrid service, ready to put an end to the DGS crashes causing players to get disconnected, it was time to move to the next major milestone: testing configurations of multiple DGSs connected to the same hybrid service. Or, put simply, our first true server mesh.
The next milestone in our tech preview testing was February 29th, which was the first time that we attempted to have 2 solar systems running on 2 DGSs connected to the same hybrid service.
So I think he's talking about the test they did with Pyro to Stanton and the traveling back and forth and the going through the jump hole. That was fucking awesome. And you're awesome, Jackal, for the follow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is cool. So this is all actually really I'm getting excited. I hate the. Why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. I should have just been stoic. No, but this is actually kind of cool and exciting because if what they're all saying is true, then maybe we're gonna get some cool shit sooner than later.
And clients basically able to connect through them, choose which solar system they wanted to play in, and go and play.
So this one was the big surprise. So we were really excited to finally get multiple DGSs and multiple solar systems out there into the hands of the backers for testing. And also this was a huge milestone for the platform teams, because it's their first time having to deploy a full-on server mesh with multiple DGSs out to our live environment. That was a super exciting test.
We still had the single hybrid, which for us, having a single hybrid manage the state of multiple servers was a huge, huge milestone. And with those, there may have been some bugs, some interestingness. being able to see crash recovery actually occur and then succeed on the Pyro server really proved to us that we're kind of getting to that kind of milestone point.
We had tried it internally first, but yeah, with the tech previews, it tends to be pretty hot. What you see.
Yeah, that means you guys tried it as devs, not as, you didn't have a testing team, because otherwise they would have said like, oh yeah, we brought in a bunch of testers and they tested it out before you guys got to test it. Bullshit. We were the testing team. They just gave it a shot in-house. They're like, oh yeah, this probably works. And if it worked better than they anticipated, then I'm really happy. And I do remember, if I'm correct, now if anybody knows better than I do, please correct me either here or in the comments on YouTube, but I believe that the first tests were actually very successful until they started upping the player count to past 400, was it, or 600? And when they got to 600, 800, that's when it really started to fall apart. I'm not a part of Evocati, but I do know a lot of people who are in Evocati, and I tend to ask them way too many questions. So,
is the build that we've created the day before. It's kind of a bit of a wing and a prayer to hope that it is actually going to work. We got a lot of data.
All right, let's keep going.
It seems that we never tried anything quite like this before, and the tech might not actually cope with it, and then we might have to cancel the test. Things, thankfully, went really, really, really well. Generally speaking, when we tested server meshing stuff out, it's tended to behave better than people expected at the time. So yeah, we've kind of gotten lucky with some of this stuff.
When you pause and try to watch hours later. Oh yeah, no. YouTube has been driving me crazy this entire stream. This React that should have taken 40 minutes tops has taken an hour and 20.
However, as awesome as it was to finally see two star systems running on the same DGS, there was still one last-minute disappointment for every member of the team.
Unfortunately, we had a last-minute issue with the jump points. That meant they weren't quite going to make it for that test.
Originally, we were trying to make it so that the jump gates were functional, and you could have done solar system transitions via the jump gates. We didn't manage to make that in time.
I remember being very upset that jump points decided not to work at the last minute. But there was an issue with the jump points where if someone used it, the radius to pull in people from the server to go to Pyro was essentially the size of the universe. So if you used the jump point, everyone in Stanton was going to Pyro whether they wanted to or not.
And so you had to, so how did you enforce people not using it?
I don't actually remember. I think it was just said, no, don't.
And the people behaved?
If I remember, only one person tried it and it broke, so nothing happened, which, very lucky.
And then, only...
Happy errors, you know, because I would have been so sure that somebody would have tried. Then someone used it, yeah. But yeah, thank you, Razorblades. And tech preview ended. Yeah, and that was the end of that preview.
A week later, on March 7th, the first successful test of a jump point assisted server transition occurred.
For us in the UK, the tech preview releases tend to go out like 11 midnight kind of time. And I stayed up and hopped on to kind of give it a look, and the excitement that we had from being able to like actually see us, like thousands of players in a queue, jump through the jump points, and for things to work with minimal issues is a very exciting time for us.
Sat by the Pyro.
Just exudes excitement, that guy. Just, I feel it. I am feeling the radiance of his excitement. No, I'm sure he was more excited at the time.
Jump gate, watching the first backers come through from Stanton. Myself, a whole bunch of the team were online watching that happen. Amazing to see it, kind of culmination of, you know, years of work by dozens of teams and hundreds of people.
I remember being really happy because everyone was thrilled. All the backers were really thrilled that they actually saw it themselves. I remember the players going through the gate and smashing into each other on the other side. They would just come out of the gate and somebody would be parked there from having just come through, and they would crash into each other. They would spin out. It was really funny.
Yeah, it's pretty...
I would have loved to have seen that. Right. That last guy seemed like the lead network designer seemed like he had more fun with it. But this is cool. It's kind of nice to see their reactions, like to see their take on it. Some of them seem, more open and honest and comfortable in front of camera than others, of course. So, of course, I'm always going to make a joke or two at those who are not as comfortable.
It was pretty great having people actually be able to do it, something they'd been waiting for God knows how long.
Seeing people actually use the jump gates for the first time, that was like really exciting. That I think brought home to the community at large that this was actually server meshing, that we're actually doing the real tech here, and it actually works. And yeah, we knew it all along, but yeah, it told everybody else that, yeah, we're doing the real deal here.
Yeah. You looked just as convinced that it was going to work all along as we were.
Yeah, I knew it would.
Oh, you knew it would work?
In that run-up, we tested nothing but the jump gates, because that was our focus, so...
QA is so cynical that if they say it works,
it's gonna work, yeah. Right. It's gonna work.
That works.
They have a QA department? I had no idea. It's news to me.
And with these first successful tests now having proven out the project's ability to simultaneously operate 2 star systems across 2 DGSs on a single shard, the time was fast approaching to test the other core functionality of server meshing technology, the subdivision of an entire star system across multiple servers.
We've done the jump gates, so we focused on just having the Stanton system again, but this time we split the Stanton system between multiple DGSs.
It's super exciting now to finally deliver on what I think a lot of people's vision of server meshing is, which is a single solar system being divided into multiple areas that are all being managed by multiple DGSs.
We were once again really, really nervous about how this is going to work. The subdivision of Stanton up into multiple servers is technically a risky thing to do.
So the way that we did that is we kind of carved up the Stanton solar system into what we call territories, and then we'd assign those territories to different numbers of DGSs. And while we were doing that, we also tried increasing the player cap. We tried 2 DGSs, 200 players, 3 DGSs, 400 players, 4 DGSs, 400 players, and then we just decided to go a bit nuts, and we tried 6 DGSs and 800 players. And that was really to stress the system, test server crash recovery, and kind of, get all the performance information about how the hybrid service is able to handle these higher numbers of DGSs and higher numbers of players.
And seeing 800...
That guy looks like he really needs a vacation. Like, I would believe that, they've all worked very hard and very long on trying to get this working. And I think I can also appreciate that they all are to a certain extent, very proud of having accomplished this. And it's kind of interesting for them to mention some of the issues they ran into as they were going to do it. Sounds a lot like what SCS has done with their software, having clients and send coordinates and the servers do the math and send that back to clients to display when you're between one another. SCS does that with trucks. Interesting. And that's essentially what their challenge was, right? Is getting all that information to transit in real time through this layer that could then transmit in real time that same information to all these different servers attached to this one layer, game shard or whatever they call it, that then makes sure all that information is actively being communicated between everything that needs it, which is pretty intense when you think about it. And when you think about the amount of entities, like just how detailed and how demanding it is to have just one ship, like a Reclaimer or a Carrack flying around. So for them to being able to accomplish this is really cool, is really impressive, even to me as a layman who understands nothing about networking and whose only networking attempts has been to create servers for DayZ, Valheim, and Satisfactory, which I hope you all enjoy, even though I probably suck at managing them. But yeah, so it's cool. I like this.
100 players in a shard, and seeing the screenshots on Reddit, very, very exciting to see that what we had made was capable of that, though there's certainly improvements to be made.
We actually exposed a bug during that one where you would drop out of quantum travel right at the transition point.
When someone would transition across that border, they would just vanish. So yeah, it made it very obvious where the borders are.
All the backers were like, oh, we know where the server boundaries are.
That was accidental, but it provided us a fantastic testing opportunity because people could really hammer.
Yeah, I kept hearing about those things. You'll quantum, and when you get to that threshold of where the server one stops and the other begins, one thing would get taken, or basically you and your ship would very rarely make it past. And a lot of people were like, yeah, I ended up stranded in space, just in my suit, just floating, which would probably suck.
All sorts of crazy conditions at the boundary to see, shooting other ships across the boundary and all throwing cargo boxes across and watching it all largely work.
Shooting across it, EVA-ing across it, lots of testing that we weren't really expecting to get out of that actually happened. And for the most part, it held up really well.
This configuration of star systems broken up into multiple territories, each containing one or more parts of the playable space like a planet or moon, distributed between whichever number of DGSs are available, and spreading the simulation workload across all the DGSs in the mesh, is what will one day allow us to seamlessly move or transition players throughout the galaxy without immersion-breaking loading screens. But with this first series of tests now completed, it was time to step back and ready the replication layer split and server crash recovery for Alpha 3.23.
I watch a lot of streams.
Actually, Tonic, you bring up a really good point. This is something I've been wondering about for a while now. What happens, right, when we have 400 player servers and everyone decides to meet at New Babbage, or everyone decides to meet at Orison, or what happens? There's supposed to be multiple shards just to handle those players, right? Are they gonna cut off access to those people, or be like, you have to wait, there's a problem going on, you can't connect right now. You should stay away from Orison for a minute. That's gonna be hilarious. You do not need to be here for the draw itself. I will give people 24 hours to respond. But make sure to be in the Discord so it's easier for me to respond, or for me to, message you. Otherwise, I will try to message people through Twitch. If you don't answer me in 24 hours, I will draw again tomorrow on stream, basically, and we'll find the next winner. Like Daisy kind of does when coordinates get messed up, characters go flying. Yeah, I had some issues setting things up in Daisy. It'll be like Spaceballs when there's a giant glass dome over the planet and you need to wait for the passcode to open the hatch. Dynamic server meshing, it's moot. It will spin up new servers more granular to serve all capacity. Yeah, that I know with dynamic, but I feel like pretty far away from getting that up and running, at least a year.
Gamers and videos, and everyone was really, really happy. And that makes me happy. That makes me motivated to do my job.
When the RL split went out in 3.23, we didn't see too many problems. And things seem to be working very, very well. And I believe that's largely can be attributed to the amount of testing that we've done, kind of leading up with the backers and with the public.
When General QA was testing it, when they first got their eyes on it, basically you could hear a pin drop when they were testing it. It was so quiet. People were so worried about it. And then when the test was over, they were floored, essentially. They didn't realize that tech had already been put into the game. And it was actually pretty incredible that it worked so well.
The server recovery stuff was always something we have to get into Star Citizen to make the whole thing work. The crash recovery stuff required a lot of work on the game team side of things just to make sure that their systems is compatible, so that when we do have the crash recovery, their systems will recover along with the actual server.
It's a testament to our approach to all of this with Tech Preview, with getting all of this out into the hands of the backers super early. It's given us an environment and a place to mature this tech. So at the time that we came around to delivering it for real in the live release with 3.23, we had really good confidence that it was going to work, that it was going to be a good experience, and I think for the large part, that's been true.
With Alpha 3...
Yeah, I agree with you, Zero. I do like the positivity in this video. I like the fact that it's like we're there, we're getting there, we're so close. We had some bumps along the road, but it's going better than we thought. Now I just hope we don't get something in the next 2 weeks where it's like, so you know how we said it was going well? Well, no, can't have that.
323 now out, there's still work to be done, and a new series of trials have already begun by the time this episode airs.
Between now and 4.0, we've got a lot of work to do, both on the tech side of things within Core Tech Group, with the teams who are actually working on server meshing. There's a lot of work to do on the game side of things. We've got to work with the game teams very, very closely. Pretty much every system in the whole game is affected by server meshing to some extent.
More tech previews in the lead up to 4.0. That should help us harden like some subdivision, multi-system split, and kind of see where we can kind of push things.
Every time they bump up the test, like more and more people, I'm just like, oh, now they're going to find more stuff that we don't know about. Oh no, there's more work coming.
My team's also improving tooling as well, making sure the health of the content is and the world we're building is the best it can be.
Ultimately, these steps between now and Alpha 4.0 and the continuing work beyond are only made possible by the support of fellow developer and tech preview tester alike. And it's these efforts that keep the teams moving forward towards these difficult but attainable milestones.
Has there ever been a point in the last 5 years where you lost faith?
No.
Really?
No, yeah, no. No, I mean, there have been some, it's been a bit rocky at times. But I never lost faith because I believe in the tech.
I don't think we could have done this anywhere else. Nowhere else was.
I like that guy. I'm kind of glad he's the lead designer on the network side. That's cool. I mean, and it's also, you know, he seems so honest, so it's refreshing.
Have the patience to really develop this kind of tech on the promise of something that might happen.
I don't think there is another game company on the planet that can do what we're doing. We can take risks to produce amazing technologies that other game companies simply can't take. I'm pretty convinced that this couldn't be done anywhere else.
Might sound like we're really confident with how well
Yeah, screw you, Bethesda. No, I'm kidding.
Tech Preview has been going, because but we're honestly amazed at how smoothly a lot of this has gone. Always room for improvement, of course, and there's always things that we wish had gone better. But by and large, we're really impressed with the maturity of the tech so early on. How well it performed under really heavy load in a real environment.
This is an incredibly exciting time for me. I personally have been working on this for almost 10 years. All the little bits and pieces that we've been doing have all been leading up to this. This year's been fantastic in actually seeing a lot of it all come together, and you know, the jigsaw puzzle's virtually complete now. There's just the last few pieces to put in. It's just been amazing to actually see all this work, all this effort that we've put in actually come together, and to be able to put it in the hands of our backers and, you know, get their feedback and, you know, have them experience what this could mean for the game. It's amazing.
Star Citizen Alpha 4.0 will be the first time a server mesh consisting of multiple DGSs with many territories and even multiple star systems makes its way to the live game environment. This represents an enormous step forward towards our goal of making Star Citizen into a massive, seamless, persistent universe. After 4.0, we'll continue to push this first version of server meshing, gradually increasing the number of DGSs within the mesh and the number of players this technology can immediately support. But to fully unlock the potential of the work being done, beyond that, we'll pursue dynamic server meshing, where the distribution of players and entities that get streamed in on the DGSs are managed according to server load. All in all, the journey to server mesh.
Okay. I've really liked this ISE so far. We're going to see how Jared wraps it up, but it was so refreshing to see the guys who are actually working on this stuff, to see their excitement and how happy they are to, like that last guy said, see everything kind of come together. And I'm really hoping that with this, things are just going to speed up from here once this is a bit more stable and they understand, you know, why things are breaking and, you know, how to prevent that in future iterations of server meshing or game builds or whatever you want to call it, or whatever they decide to add in. I think that's absolutely awesome. And it also is really, really encouraging for us finally seeing capital ships in the game. Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe you'll win the giveaway. All right, let's finish this up.
Meshing started nearly 10 years ago and will continue to evolve beyond its debut in this year's Alpha 4.0. And we invite you to continue following along with this progress in the Tech Preview channel, where you can help to ensure the best possible future for its development, as well as keep folks like the UK Network team, just one of the many groups dedicated to bringing this technology to life, energized and empowered to make this dream a reality. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.
All right, do we get any funnies at the end? Any funnies? Where are my funnies? Jared, I'm so disappointed. Bring back the funnies. But all right, thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with me through that react. Like I said, I'm really happy with that one. I thought it was incredibly interesting to see everything they talked about with server meshing. I think it was really nice to put a face to the people who have been actually working on this. It was hilarious to hear them talk about how well they thought 3.18 and 3.19 went when we have very different opinions as the player base. It was also hilarious to hear them talk about, giving us the opportunity to try these things, when really it means test this. Did it work? What are you going to break it for us now? Is what it should have been said. But no, all in all, jokes aside, I think that's pretty deserved what I just said. But I think it's really cool. I think we all have so many questions and so much writing on server meshing that it was nice to see them admit, and Jared confirmed right there at the end of the video, 4.0 this year. So far, that hasn't changed. So yeah. So thanks again, everybody. If you don't agree with something I said, or if you have some details to add, make sure to leave a comment here or on YouTube. And yeah, I will see you next week for the next React. Thanks again, everybody, for hanging out. I really appreciate it.